Hey y'all, welcome to Robyn on the Farm. You just saw me grinding up some fresh wheat. So this is how I store it. I store it in these really great little containers. So this is freshly ground, it's nice and warm. I'm just gonna pour it into this container and then I'm gonna use it to make my bread today. Today I'm gonna be making a 100% whole wheat Dutch oven bread. This is a fantastic bread for beginners because it's a no-knead bread. It also has very, very few ingredients. It's only 4 ingredients. One of them is water. So this is a great recipe to make when you have very few ingredients on hand, or you're a beginner and you don't want to mess with the whole kneading process if you're kind of intimidated by that. So this is just a really simple bread to make, very few ingredients. And it's one of my favorite breads because I've been making this bread. It's one of the first ones I ever learned how to make. It's just really easy. You don't need a mixer, you don't need a bread machine, you just need a bowl, a spatula, you just need very few things. So I really like this bread. It's a really good crunchy, crusty bread. It's great for soups and salads and that kind of thing. And it's definitely best fresh out of the oven. We usually eat this whole loaf right out of the oven with our dinner. Also, one of the things I like about this bread is you can mix it all up in the morning and then let it sit on your counter to rise. You can let it rise anywhere from 2 hours to, I've gone as long as like 10 hours. So if you have a busy day, you're not really sure when you're gonna get to make your bread, this is a great bread for that. I like to mix it up early in the morning and just let the dough sit on my counter until I'm ready to bake it and have it ready in time for dinner. So I just milled up some fresh flour. Let's go ahead and use it for this bread. This is hard white winter wheat. And I just ground it up. It's still warm from being ground up. So this is what you do for this bread. So simple, like I said, 4 ingredients. All you need is some whole wheat flour. So I'm gonna make this 100% whole wheat. That means that it's only whole wheat flour. There's no enriched white flour, but if you want to, you can do like half and half. Okay, so I'm gonna do 3 cups of this flour, this 100% whole wheat flour, and to that I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt. I like to do a little bit heaping teaspoon. There's no eggs, there's no butter, there's no oil in this bread at all. It's very simple, basic bread. Okay, to the whole wheat flour and the salt, I'm gonna add some yeast, a tiny bit of yeast. It's only a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. Okay, so 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, just throw that right on in there. This is my active dry yeast. You can use instant yeast, anything you want. Really not a big deal. So I'm gonna just whisk up these 3 ingredients really quick just to kind of get them all mixed up. And then you're gonna want 1½ cups of hot water. I turn my tap all the way on hot, let it run for a minute. It's nice and hot. It's like 105 to 110 degrees. That's what you want it to be. So nice and hot water. Just pour that on in there. Now I'm just gonna take this rubber spatula and I am going to just stir it up. This is not a recipe that you need a stand mixer for, or you don't need to do any hand kneading or anything like that. So we're just gonna mix it up. Just make sure all of the flour gets incorporated in there. Let's see, you can see what it looks like so far. I'm gonna keep mixing it just so I don't have any dry flour at the bottom. Just kind of squish it out, there we go. It's looking good. So, just do it another second and then I'll show you. This is a super shaggy dough. This is not a dough that you're gonna knead and then get it to be like smooth and elastic and anything like that. This is gonna be super shaggy. You just want it to come together and that's it. So that is what my 100% whole wheat dough is gonna look like for this Dutch oven peasant bread. Okay, that's it. Now, I am just gonna cover it. I'm gonna cover it with some plastic wrap. Usually I'll use like a wet tea towel to cover my dough while it's rising, but I don't know if I'm gonna let this sit out for 2 hours or 10 hours. And so if I would let it sit out for 10 hours with a wet tea towel, it would dry out. So I'm gonna use this plastic wrap and I'm just gonna let this sit on my counter for 2 hours or 10 hours. I'm not really sure yet. That is the beauty of this bread. That's why I love this so much. it can just sit on my counter until I'm ready to get to it. It's not a bread that you have to worry about overproofing, over-rising, anything like that. So I'm just gonna let this sit out on my countertop until it's ready to shape, and then I will show you that part when I get there. Okay, this whole wheat dough has been rising for about 4 hours, and that's just because I got busy. So it's time to check it out. Let's see. Yep, look at that. So this is what your whole wheat dough is gonna look like. It's risen, it's pretty much doubled in size, but it's not super fluffy, but that's what this whole wheat peasant bread dough is gonna look like. So now the next step is to put a little bit of flour on your countertop. Make sure your countertop's nice and clean. And then normally with dough, I'll punch it down. You don't do that with this dough. So I'm just gonna pull this out onto the countertop, onto the flour. Okay, now you don't wanna press it down. You don't wanna knead it out. You just want to take, I like to use my dough cutting tool. You can just use your spatula or anything and just kind of start flipping it over. Okay, so I'm just gonna flip it over on itself, flip it over, and you just kind of want to shape it into a nice round ball. Okay, let's see. It's looking good. It's easier to not use your hands because it is a little bit sticky until you get it worked a little bit with this flour. So let's see. That's looking good. Just kind of want to pull it up and over, pull it around. There we go. It's a nice ball now. So now, this is considered a no knead dough. So that's why you don't do much kneading or anything like that. And the reason why you don't need to knead it is because of the time that you let it rise. This works really well because we've let it sit for at least 2 hours. Mine's gone 4 hours, but you don't need to knead this dough like you do other things. It's gonna be more rustic. It's not gonna be like a really, really soft, luxurious whole wheat bread. It's gonna be more rusticy, a little more dense, but it goes great with certain foods. It goes great with salad, soup, pasta, that kind of thing. And I just really like this bread. My family really likes it too. And it's just super simple with only the 4 ingredients. Super basic, real bread right here. Super healthy too, being all whole wheat and no sugars or anything like that. So now I'm gonna take parchment paper and I'm just gonna put this bread, just lift it gently onto the parchment paper. You can kind of see it, right? Looks good. Now, just to keep its shape, this bread doesn't look like it's doing anything, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it in a bowl just to let it rise maybe another 20-30 minutes. If I get busy and it rises for another hour, that's totally fine too. It's totally easy bread to make. So no need to get uptight about any of that stuff. For this recipe, I'm gonna use my cast iron Dutch oven. Now, don't worry if you don't have a Dutch oven. You can use lots of other things. You might have to get a little creative, but like this is an oven safe bowl. I could bake it right in this bowl, just covered with some tin foil. Totally fine, that would work great. You can use a glass bowl covered in some tin foil or any kind of lid, but I have this cast iron Dutch oven that I really like, and I'm gonna use it. So this is a great thing to use. If you have like one of those beautiful enamel Dutch ovens, you can use one of those. But anything that you can put into the oven that has a lid, or you can cover it with tin foil. So this is what I'm gonna do. This bread is now sitting on the counter. I'm gonna let it rise 20-30 minutes, but it can go longer, it's totally fine. But during that time, I'm gonna go ahead and get my oven preheating to 450 degrees, and I'm gonna stick my Dutch oven into the oven to preheat while the oven's preheating. You wanna get this nice and hot. Be really careful that you don't just go to pull this out because it's gonna be hot when your oven gets hot. I've made this bread several times this week because I really like it. I always go in phases with my bread making. I'll make something that I haven't had in a while, and then I'll just keep making it, and then I'll move on to the next thing and I'll keep making it. So I've made this loaf of bread several times in this Dutch oven this week. I've actually been making this recipe for 20 years. It was one of the very first recipes that I ever made. One of the very first bread recipes that I ever learned to make. But anyway, I reached in to get this out, and I burned my arm. I burned my arm really bad on the oven. I barely touched it for a split second, but it was at 450 degrees, so be careful, look out, don't burn yourself. Anyway, I have my oven preheating. I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in there, and whenever it's done preheating, whenever I'm done with my next load of laundry or whatever else I'm gonna run around here and do, then I'm gonna stick this in there, put the top on, and let it bake for 30 minutes. So I'll show it to you at that point. Here is my whole wheat dough that it's been rising. I let it rise for about another hour. And now it's time to put it into the cast iron Dutch oven. So this has been in the oven preheating to 450 degrees, so it's hot. So be careful when you get yours out of the oven. Just gonna put this right on in here. With the parchment paper, it can go right on into your Dutch oven. And now I'm gonna put the top back on. So now I'm gonna put this back in the oven for 30 minutes at 450 degrees, and then after 30 minutes, I'm gonna take the top off and let it brown just for another 2 or 3 minutes. So that's it. I will let you see it in about 30 minutes. All right, so here is our Dutch oven whole wheat bread. Look at that, turned out great. Just gonna get it on out of here and cut into it so you can see it. Okay. Oh, it smells good. Let's see, there it is. Look at that. That is gonna be some good eating right there. I love it just fresh out of the oven. I'm gonna put some butter and some honey on this. Oh, it's gonna be great. This is a really good crusty bread, and it's gonna be great with our dinner tonight. I will put the recipe for this 100% whole wheat Dutch oven bread down in the description. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. I would really appreciate it. Thanks for being here with me on Robyn on the Farm.